You know that sinking feeling where you realise that if you'd spent just a tiny little bit of money, just a small investment, you probably could have saved thousands? Yeah, that was me. Weekly. But over the years, the last few years, I've made a few investments that have actually saved me a fortune in the long run. It's changed how we eat, how we shop, and how we save. And honestly, these 5 things have just slashed our food bill massively without feeling deprived or feel like we're just living on beans on toast. Let's start with the big one, coffee. Now, I am not talking fancy flat whites every morning, but a couple of years ago, my daughter really got into coffee, and I realised at one point that it was going to start costing quite a lot of money for this habit that I was neither partaking in or getting to enjoy. So I kind of killed 2 birds with one stone. And for her Christmas present, I made a small investment into a rather decent coffee machine. Cost me around about 50, 60 quid at the time, and bought quite a lot of the coffee pods as well. So when she opened all the coffee pods, it was sort of realised, what your main present's going to be is the coffee machine. And it's a little bit sneaky of me, admittedly, because I knew that now that we got the coffee machine, her fixture is going to be gotten from the machine. And it's going to start to save me quite a bit of money. And it was worth paying a little bit extra for a nicer coffee pod than it would have been to keep going out and buying relentless amounts of different types of coffees, whatever was trending. And that was the other cool thing as well, was because now she's a teenager, she's watching these things, she's thinking, this time of year, pumpkin spice lattes are trending, but they were like £6-7 for one from one of the premium coffee stores, whereas you can buy the syrups relatively inexpensively and the pods, make your own, and you can exactly tailor it to exactly what you want. And honestly, within a handful of weeks, it had paid for itself. So now, buy those coffee beans, I buy them in bulk from Costco whenever I get up there, use my reusable mug, and we actually enjoy making them and experimenting at home. I get to take advantage of the hot chocolate section from it because I really enjoy those. And I do quite enjoy a bit of a green tea matcha as well, so I can kind of get use out of that. It is kind of encouraging my own personal habit, and maybe that's something I should address. But honestly, the lesson learned was spending a little bit extra once can save me a lot of money in the long run. Now, I used to also think that cheap pans were absolutely fine. But a few years back, I actually traded in some of my Tesco vouchers for some premium pans. And it was something like 200 UK pounds for 3 pans, which never in a million years would I have invested in, regardless of how much cooking I enjoyed doing at the time. But once I'd had that first set of pans and saw what an incredible difference it was, there was no going back. So when I saw another great, fantastic premium version in the sale about 6 months ago, I was happy enough to pay that cash and to get them, because I knew what a difference it would make to my cooking, to my output, to the food that actually came out of it. It actually also saved me time and therefore money in a very roundabout way, because they were more efficient cooking devices, and I was using less oil because of the non-stick bottom on it, and it was just more fun and it's more enjoyable to cook with those kinds of items. It just made what could have been a relentless chore easier and more fun. Back in the day, I would have literal cupboards full of cheap ones from IKEA or B&M, and they got burnt or they got warped, and it absolutely drove me mad. But in my head, I couldn't justify at that time paying for the pans when you see the prices of them, unless you can get them at a really good discount or a sale, or like I did, traded my Tesco points in for a 3-piece set. And it was just hard for me to justify that to myself until I got to experience it. And here's the other thing as well. I now need less of the pans. I find myself just having those 3 or 4 really good, decent pans, a heavy buttered saucepan, for example, can have multiple functions. A really decent roasting tray that is non-stick, or a really decent paring knife, it can make the absolute world of difference. The ones that I have got, the ones that I had from Tesco's, lasted me literal years. And it's only because some of them become damaged in moving them, or they've got like smashed lids and things like that. Or it's that I've had them for so long, my daughter actually burnt some rice on the bottom of one and it just completely ruined it for me. So when these other ones popped up, that was the reason I replaced them. But actually, the ones that I've also got from the set initially, I've still got a big saucepan and one other smaller pan that I still use. And, I don't need very much more than that. And as a sort of a side bit to this one, when it is easier to cook, I found personally that I am less inclined to go for things like a takeaway, because it's easier to do, to actually cook it, less time than waiting for a takeaway to arrive. So it's saving me money in that way as well. And that is how I am now going to be justifying like more high-end premium products that help me in the kitchen, rather than thinking, I don't want to pay that little bit more. Now I just think it's an investment and it is worth it because of all the upsides that these seem to have. Now, I am absolutely not Mary Berry, but baking gear has saved me a fortune. I would easily buy muffins, cookies, those little mini cakes, because the kids love them for snacks. But then as soon as I buy them in, they would be gone, just like that, which is just sort of a standard, isn't it? When you've got kids in the house, you bring them in. I remember bringing them in, but when I go to look for one, they're gone. And it was, not very inexpensive. They were quite an expensive thing in the grand scheme of things. Even if you could get them at a discounted price or as a reduced price, I still felt that they were quite expensive, the amount of time that they lasted in my home. So instead, I picked up a hand mixer, some nice bowls, and some silicone trays. And I probably spent around about £40 in total. And now I make my own. And it's really good as well, because I can get my little boy involved. He loves creating things in the kitchen, and it's an activity that he can do that's relatively inexpensive. I'm not always saying that I'll eat the ones that he has helped me to make, but you get the idea. And it's not every week that we're doing it, but it's often enough so that I don't feel bad saying no to the £3.50, £5 cupcakes that I saw the other day with novelty Halloween decorations on. And he'll look at those, my little boy was looking at those, and I was like, yeah, but we can make so many more, and we can have fun doing it, making them ourselves. And that is the seller for him. And that's the other thing that I mean as well when I talk about an investment. It's not just an investment in the products and in the items that you buy. It's an investment in my time, investment in those memories that I can make with him, and those activities that we get to do together. We're building and creating memories and things that I know he'll look back on in years and think, I used to love those days when we'd get all the baking stuff out and we'd have fun creating stuff in the kitchen. Save cash, build memories, say no more. This next one was an absolute game changer for me. When I was really trying to save money, and I would look at every little way where I was losing some, where it was literally felt like it was falling through my fingers, one of the things that I generally didn't think I did was waste. I really thought I made the most of every little bit of food scrap until I started tracking it properly. A few limp carrots here, a bit of a rotten red pepper over there, and half a pack of pork mince. But actually, it all started to add up. Previously, I used to use my takeaway containers, and they were fine. You get your plastic container, and that used to be a good excuse. I need to have another takeaway tonight. I seem to have run out of plastic containers. So we'd use the plastic containers from takeaway and use those as storage, which were kind of okay. And they were great for when, I wanted to go out for the day and put some sandwiches in. But in terms of trying to freeze stuff, they weren't always the best. So instead, I bought proper containers for both pantry and for the freezer as well. I actually got gifted a secondhand chest freezer, so it cost me absolutely nothing. And it was like the kick up the bum, the push that I needed to start doing this properly. I got this freezer sent to me, and I was like, right, well, I might as well make the most of this and start utilising this in the best possible way. I did a bit of Googling, figured out what was the best thing to do, and it was, the batch cooking are the things that I love doing now. So now I can bulk cook, store the leftovers in it, and anything I get off of the juice section, they can go in there as well, and it's saving me an absolute fortune every single month. So now I can just grab something handmade, avoiding the takeout. I don't need to use the excuse of, I need to get myself a new takeout container, so I better order myself a takeout. And it's just huge for cutting costs. If you only make one investment from this video, that one would be the one I would say. You'll get a second-hand fridge freezer if you can, and some decent containers, and that would be my biggest takeout from this video, if nothing else. Protect what you buy in the first place. Otherwise, you are literally throwing money in the garbage bin. I know this one sounds really simple, but honestly, learning how to cook, not just reheated, has actually saved us so much more than anything else. When I was growing up, everything seemed to taste the same. We lived on boil in the bag stuff and microwave stuff. There wasn't much flavour. Everything was beige and white and easy and simple, and everything, you just literally got all the same flavour together. And I think that was one of the incentives that I had to start learning to cook, was because I wanted to try things new. And it was sort of, I got into watching Can't Cook, Won't Cook when I was a kid, and I watched them and I just thought, that looks fun, that looks doable. They were like really simple ingredients, basic things, and they were teaching people who couldn't cook how to cook. And I watched really carefully. I watched the knife skills, I watched how they prepare things, I'd watch how they cut certain things up and how long do you cook them for and what went with what and what things sort of started to come together to make an actual meal. And when I left my marriage with £100,000 worth of debt, I couldn't afford to not cook. I couldn't afford to waste any scraps of food, because there was literally days I would eat either nothing or I'd eat anything that my daughter left on a plate, and I was grateful for it. So there was literally no room for being wasteful of any parts of any ingredients that I got. I needed to learn how to cook with them. And I taught myself all the cheap recipes. I taught myself the batch cooking, taught myself how to make a curry from tinned tomatoes as a base instead of the jars. And you don't need a fancy course or fancy ingredients. Turn on the TV, turn on your computer. There's so much more at your fingertips now than there ever was when I was trying to learn and teach myself. You just need to learn a few basic movements, a few basic little skills that will help you to turn ingredients into actual meals that your family will eat. And that is the real investment. It's that investment in you, yourself. Because once you've got the skills, you'll never panic come mealtime again. Even if the fridge looks empty with just a handful of ingredients, you will always be able to create something from it. That all being said, here is the actual truth. You can buy yourself the fancy coffee machine, you can buy yourself the fancy pans and all those 20 containers to put all your leftovers in, but if you don't use them, then it's clutter. If you don't stick with it, it's a wasteful investment. And the real saving will come when you commit. Don't just be one of those people that buys it, therefore thinks it's going to happen. Amazon delivered everything today, therefore I'm going to be rich in a few months. But then those parcels barely get used. That is not what I'm saying at all. You have got to decide, right, well, I'm making my coffee at home, or I'm getting one of those pre-made meals out of the freezer tonight, even if normally we do get a takeout on a Wednesday night. That is where the real change happens. Small investments only work if you keep showing up for them, just like budgeting itself. So there you have it, 5 small investments that have genuinely slashed our food/drink bill, if you count the coffee. They're not quick fixes, but they are things that will last. If you want to know about any of the products that I've used personally, the ones that I bought as my investments, I will link them all down below in the description section for you. And then once you've got your kitchen sorted, make sure to watch one of these videos that is going to help you to start making some more food items at home and help you to save hundreds of pounds. Have yourself an amazing day, and I'll see you really soon. Bye.